Hello and welcome. This is our second book. This is the book about Ojibwe Native Americans. So we've just read the one about the Dakota, and so now we're on to the Ojibwe. Let's get started. Our contents for this book are going to be amazing people, Ojibwe territory, home life, what they ate, daily life, made by hand, spirit life, storytellers, fighting for land, back in time, the Ojibwe today, and then our glossary, online resources, and index at the very end. Amazing people. Hundreds of years ago, North America was mostly wild, open land. Native American tribes lived on the land. Each had its own language and customs. The Ojibwe are one Native American tribe. Many know them for their ceremonies and handmade crafts. Let's learn more about these Native Americans. It says, did you know? The Ojibwe call themselves the Anishinaabe. This means the people. Early French settlers called the Ojibwe Soutars. The Canadian province Saskatchewan is named for the tribe. Ojibwe territory. The Ojibwe are one of North America's largest tribes. Their homelands were in what is now Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec in Canada. In the United States, the tribe also lived in present-day North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Here's a map of where that would be. Here's the Canadian side, and here's the United States. Home life. The Ojibwe were nomadic people. As animal herds traveled, the Ojibwe had to quickly take down their wigwams and move. To set up their homes, women tied trees into a dome-shaped frame. In the summer, they covered it with birch bark, cattails, and reeds. During the winter, they covered the wigwams with animal furs. Our note here says a large wigwam held several families and had 2 campfires. So this is an example of a pretty big wigwam. And here you can see some of the bark and then the reeds that act as the roof. What they ate. The Ojibwe gathered wild rice in the fall. They brushed the rice into their boats with long sticks. Then they roasted it and stored it for winter. In warmer weather, men fished from birch bark canoes, and in the winter they fished through holes cut into the ice-covered lakes. The Ojibwe also hunted ducks, geese, and rabbits, and they planted sweet potatoes, pumpkins, corn, beans, and squash. Our note says sometimes Ojibwe men hunted elk, deer, or moose. Daily life. Tribe members made deerskin clothes. The women stripped plant stems and used the dried matter to make fabric. Women wore dresses and men wore loincloths. Everyone had leggings and moccasins. In winter, people added buckskin robes or used blankets as coats. Here the note says women used porcupine quills to sew beads onto clothes. Ojibwe men and women had different jobs. Women prepared most of the food and made the clothes. Men fought in war, hunted, and fished. Together, Ojibwe tapped maple trees for sap they made into sugar. They also gathered wild rice in their canoes. This note says Ojibwe men built small canoes for their children to play with. So here's a little toy canoe. Made by hand. The Ojibwe made many objects by hand. They often used natural supplies. These arts and crafts added beauty to everyday life. Here we have birch bark canoes. Ojibwe used birch bark to cover their canoes. Bead bags. Ojibwe women showed off their beadwork by sewing shoulder bags. Snowshoes. Snowshoes were made from bent wood frames with leather webbing. These helped people walk on top of the deep snow. Cradle boards. Babies stayed warm inside cradle boards. Mothers tucked moss inside the bottom to keep the babies dry. So the moss kind of acted like a diaper to soak up if the baby went to the bathroom. Spirit life. Dreams are an important part of the Ojibwe culture. Boys and girls learn to seek visions and dreams. Ojibwe believed dreams helped them connect to the spirit world. Sometimes Ojibwe did not eat for days to gain knowledge about the universe. They believed this was the way to meet with their guiding spirits. This says Ojibwe hung handmade dream catchers to make sure they had good dreams. Storytellers. Like many tribes, the Ojibwe have a creation story. Long ago, water covered the earth. Nana Bozoa and his animal friends floated through the water on a boat. They each swam underwater for sand, but they failed. Then Muskrat swam down and came back with sand in his paws. The wind blew until the ball of sand grew into what is now the earth. This says Agawa Rock on Lake Superior features some early Ojibwe paintings. These paintings were made to tell stories of dreams, visions, and events. Fighting for land. Throughout history, the Ojibwe had to fight for their rights. Over hundreds of years, the Ojibwe lost land to European settlers. The tribe signed many treaties to protect their land and people, but broken promises left the Ojibwe with little food, shelter, or land. In 1891, Ojibwe children were forced to attend boarding schools. There, teachers corrected them if they spoke their native language. Here our note says, Ojibwe dance to tell stories about battles. In the early 1900s, the government forced the Ojibwe to move onto reservations. Then, in the 1950s, many Ojibwe had to move off reservations and into big cities. But the Ojibwe wanted to keep their culture. Beginning in 1984, new reservations began in Michigan. In 1999, the Ojibwe won the right to hunt and fish on their old land. This note says the western side of Lake Mille Lacs is part of the Ojibwe Reservation in Minnesota. Here we have our back in time timeline. Starting in the year 900, we have ancestors of the Ojibwe lived along the east coast. They began to move toward the Midwest. 1400s, ancestors of the Ojibwe arrived in the Midwest. 1545, the Ojibwe spread throughout Wisconsin and Minnesota. 1754 to 1763, tribe members joined the French to fight the British in the French and Indian War. 1850, more than 150 Ojibwe died from hunger and illness during the Big Sandy Lake tragedy. 1902, the U.S. government sold land on Mille Lacs Lakes Reservation. The Ojibwe had to move to the White Earth Reservation. 1989, Ojibwe leader Winona LaDuke formed the White Earth Land Recovery Project. This group worked to take back the land the Ojibwe had lost. 2008, the Oshki Manitou Center was set up in Bemidji, Minnesota. It was a place to help Ojibwe with health problems. 2016, Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton announced that Columbus Day would become Indigenous Peoples Day. The Ojibwe today. The Ojibwe have a long, rich history. Many remember them for gathering wild rice and tapping maple syrup. Ojibwe roots run deep. Today, the people have held on to those special things that make them Ojibwe. Even though times have changed, many people carry the customs, stories, and memories of the past into the present. It says, did you know? Today, almost 200,000 Ojibwe live in North America. Ojibwe continue to wear cultural clothes to share their history with others. The end. And here we have a quote that says, the deer is my companion. I follow his life. I never need a compass to go through the woods, for I am able to find my way just like a deer. And that's L'Anse of the Ojibwe. And that's the end of our book on the Ojibwe. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you haven't heard the Dakota book yet, please look for that one. There should be a link on the rubric or on the same YouTube channel that you found this one. And then we'll have some work to go with it. So thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you later.